The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings, Fortinet Championship, DraftKings Picks, Bets, and PGA TOUR Rookie Preview. It's been a long break since we were last talking golf, an entire 10 days on the Pat Mayo Experience. This is an eternity for us not talking golf on the show, but we're back for the swing season. We got some new looks. We got some rookies to talk about. DraftKings pricing already out. Let's get to it. Reminder to smash the like for the episode, sub to Mayo Media Network. And if you haven't been watching the football shows, shame on you. However, if you're listening to this right now, I am giving away $1,000 for bribing you into giving me an Apple or Spotify review. Even if you've done it before, that's being given away Wednesday with me and Feinberg on the show. So just hit the description, leave a sub to the podcast, Pat Mayo Experience, turn on auto downloads, and then leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. Spotify might not let you leave a review, so just like screenshot that you did it and tweet it to me, and boom, you're in the draw. Winner gets $500. Second and third get $250. That's coming on Wednesday, so please go do that right now. Obviously, all the stats, all the tools, fantasynational.com/Mayo get you 20% off any membership level. So let's get to it. The host of the DP World Tour Picks and Bets on Mayo Media Network had a brand new show come out late on Sunday evening, a full preview with all of the Korn Ferry rookies. I'm going to pick his brain about the ones we really need to focus on here. Skylar Hoke, what's up?
Hey, Pat. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, I love kind of the fall swing. It's just and why I kind of even fell in love with the DP World Tour. It's getting to know these golfers and finding advantages and opportunities before kind of the public does. So game of golf is completely changing as, things are happening, but excited for these guys. There's some definite talent there and some opportunities. We've seen guys win right out of the gates before the pass of this event. So excited.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just scanning the early odds. We can kind of jump over to that right now if you kind of want to get into it. All the lines from DraftKingsSportsbook.com, obviously. I see Griot is 40-1 to win. And this was the site of his only career win. We got like Homa.
He's the one example. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's back. I think that's back when it was the Fries.com Open too. So
right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I think Tiger may have played that year too, because he used to randomly play. I think he's like going to Napa, but I don't know. Homa, Hideki, Connors, all sub 20. They're 10, 16, and 16 at DK Sportsbook. Mav, Cam Davis, Thigala. They're the only three below 30. And then you're just in this entire mix of like Pendrith, President's Cup, Taylor Pendrith, Davis Riley, Griot, Steele. Steele won this back-to-back years a few years back. Played some good golf coming in. I mean, that's where my eyes kind of went to start off with this. But then, I mean, is Taylor Montgomery the highest ranked Korn Ferry rookie here?
Yeah. So if we got to the next step of odds, it's him and your boy, Justin Sue, right there. They should be both, I think, right in that 66-ish range, most places. So I would say they are definitively the 1-2 of the graduates, in my opinion. And both kind of set up well for this course. We've seen, I guess, if you have a course that Steele wins at back-to-back years, we've seen, I guess, Homa, winning like that. Like it is a ball strikers type of course, and both of those guys absolutely stripe it.
Do you have any lean on because it's tough right now because you have a lot of these Korn Ferry grads coming up. Obviously, we don't know exactly how that's going to translate to the PGA Tour. But in terms of looking at recent form, skill sets, how do you gauge these guys?
Yeah, so this was kind of cool in the preview show. I mean, obviously we can't go through all 50 golfers.
All 50? No, let's do it.
Okay, one by one. But Ryan French and I, Monday Q Info, were able to, and he had a story on just about every single golfer because 35 of these guys have less than 50 PGA Tour starts. So it's a lot of names that, the regular crowd is not familiar with. So I've kind of spent the last few weeks, especially leading into Korn Ferry Tour finals, trying to profile and at least understand the style these golfers are. So if I'm looking at this course the way we've seen it, and we've seen distance kind of play a factor. We have seen, I think you have to do decently off of the tee, here in one aspect or another. But if I looked at kind of the longest golfers of the graduating, if I kind of went by a few statistic profiles, Brandon Matthews, who's way down in the 6Ks, he's the longest of the graduating bunch. If you remember Will Gordon is back. He graduated. MJ Duffy is another one who's now full-time the PGA Tour. And then Ben Ann. Those are the four longest golfers. If I looked at, though, what I really think and what we probably want to focus on kind of throughout the season, if we looked at the 5 golfers who hit the most greens in regulation, this is weighted against the field on the season of graduates: Augusto Nunez, Vincent Norman, Carl Wan, Sam Stevens, Brent Grant were those leaders in greens and regulation. We can talk as we get to salary ranges, but overall games, Sue and Montgomery were very clear above the rest.
I like Vince Norman only because he had a one on a par.
I love him. Look at this. So Norman's stats. And if you're fine staying on these guys for a little bit as we talk.
Oh no, well, let's do it right now. Let's talk about the Corn Ferry guys that we need to know. And we can break down Corey Connors all we want. It's like, can Corey Connors putt this week? Probably not. But if he does, he'll win. Like, we know that.
So yes, absolutely. So if we go into Norman, 13th in weighted driving accuracy, 6th in weighted greens and regulation, 12th in weighted scrambling, 20th in weighted bogey avoidance. Just overall, you can see those like literally as good it gets. And then he's 125th in weighted putts per greens and regulation. So that's the best statistic you can probably really use from, there's no strokes gained. So basically, he jumps out as a golfer who's probably the number one maybe not number one, but one of the top 5 ball strikers on that tour who just had no short game, but he did survive and get through to have a card. You're right. He had a lot of success in the DP World Tour. He's probably the sleeper of the bunch, in my opinion. That's graduating. So if you went through if we go back to the top of ranks, we said Sue and we said Montgomery, clear 1, 2. I think that third one in the mix is Carl Wan. So if you've ever seen, kind of video of Juan, he's got a wacky swing. Like he's full, like leg coming through type of like back leg, like kind of spinning a little bit. If you remember like Hoi Sung Choi or whatever that guy's name was. I couldn't remember. I was trying to come up with his name the other day because I remember they gave him the invite to Pebble Beach. Yeah. Hoi Sung Choi. That guy was great. Yes. So Juan's got that in his swing a little bit. And so but is really good. Like Choi was not good. Like Juan is electric. He was inside the top 10 in greens and regulation, also inside the top 15 in distance. So I think that's probably the best combo you could ask for. Somebody who can hit it long and then hit greens with the best. So Juan would be the third golfer for me. Now I'm not including golfers like Nick Hardy got a card through finals and like Hardy played a lot on the tour. Ryan Armour was really good in Corn Ferry Tour finals in his back. Canadian Michael Gligic. I never know how to pronounce it. Gligic. There you go. He's back and he did well in Corn Ferry Tour finals, but we know kind of Austin Cook. We know those guys already.
Yeah, like Dietrich got his card.
Yes. Yep. So Dietrich, Dean Burmeister got his card too. Now Burmeister is not playing this week. Dietrich did top 5 at Wentworth this past week, and I was coming all the way back and playing. So Dietrich got his card. And then one more DP World Tour guy, Matty Schmid, got his card as well.
Matty got his card? Okay. So he was supposed to be like the next revelation of amateur golfer.
Correct. He was really good at Louisville, came out of the gates really good in the DP World Tour starts, even as an amateur, qualified for the US Open. Should have probably won the Barbasol. And he blew it after 54 holes. And that was in his like state where he went to college. I was in Kentucky. So like he was the clear leader and kind of blew it there, but he'll be good, but he's traveling back from Wentworth as well. So a little travel kind of in there. Let's see, who have we not hit on yet? Carl Wan. I guess there's a pair of golfers that I'll talk through here too. 2 Oklahoma State grads. Probably people are a little bit familiar with Austin Eckroat. He has made a few PGA Tour starts here and there along the way. I believe one of them was a top 10. Let's see. He finished top 20 to start the year in the Bermuda, and then top 20 at the 3M Open just out of college, a top 12 while in school. Eckroat, he's as cheap as $7,100. And then with Norman, if I'm adding, I know I'm saying a lot of names here, but if I'm adding one more that I want to hit on that I think is going to be a consistent type of player overall, Sam Stevens. He's as long as 180 to 1. He's $6,700 this week. Stevens is also out of Oklahoma State. I mean, anybody that was able to play golf at Oklahoma State was one of the top recruits. Sam Stevens had a really, really good year on the Korn Ferry Tour. He also made the cut at the US Open after open qualifying, and he was really, really good ball striking there. He's just kind of an anomaly. If you look at the statistical ones who graduated from finals, he was like one of the best pure ball strikers all season long, just didn't really come through until the end of the year. So he got enough points in finals to get through. So like Ekro and Stevens would probably be the two ones that I trust from a full year standpoint. And then as we get into other golfers later on, there might be some like course fits that I'll get into later on.
Well, just how well do you think that these guys are going to do first time out? I know I've already mentioned Griot won in his first PGA start after qualifying, coming up through the ranks, but I think that was in like 2014 at this point. Like we saw Stuart Sink win this event.
Yeah, for sure. So what was interesting about him too, is he came over from like the European Tour at the time. He went really good in the European Tour, graduated through Korn Ferry Tour finals, and then won the first event. So like he probably was, better than spending at the time. The European Tour was way better than the Korn Ferry Tour. Now it's probably evened out, if not shifted more towards the Korn Ferry Tour. But so like Champ's an example. He won in his second start after graduating from the Korn Ferry Tour. So I think overall these guys can make impacts. Now, if you need to bet them to win, that could be, a little stretch. But if you look at like in 2020, like Ventura, Batia finished top 10, and they weren't even full time. I think that was Ventura's first start. 2019, if you look through, I think it was Xinyoung Zhang's first start. Cameron Champ, that was his second year, but early on. There's somebody in Jim Canos, I think it was in 2018. Chase Wright was another one. There's been golfers almost every single year, at least to have some type of top 10 outside of Griot winning. So I think they'll make a huge impact at DraftKings because they're all very cheap. Now, I wouldn't probably need to bet anybody outside of maybe who we've talked on, and that's realistically probably getting a little risky with it. But I do think they can make some DraftKings impacts immediately.
Okay, well, let's get to the course and talk about what we got going on. Brought up Fantasy National, fantasynational.com/Mayo to get in on it. Go to the course breakdown. We got Silverado, and always a fun one when you think your guy is winning, because this has happened to me a few times in the past, that if you go to hole 16, 17, and 18, you have 3 of the 5 easiest holes on the course, and 2 par 5s in that mix. You can make eagle, but birdie's pretty likely. The short par 4, number 17, you can make it pretty likely. And you see you have the top 10 finishers, strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained approach, and who has the hot putting week. I mean, it's no different than most of the weeks, but it does seem, it's funny because the numbers don't necessarily bear it out, like with approach being over 2.5 times, like what off the tee is. But when you go back and actually look at the winners, I mean, Homa's just a great player, but it's not like he's short off the tee. Stuart Sink still kind of bombs it, but they're all big hitters who hit a ton of greens in regulation, as you kind of hit on. That, I mean, does that mean we should just be going with Dietrich?
But I don't know if Dietrich can actually win. That's the problem with some of these guys. Like, that's my fear on him specifically, is he still hasn't even won on the DP World Tour. I mean, he lost in a playoff last year at the Scottish. So like that was a big time event, but I think the course profile is right. Now it seems to be like some random golfers that might, just like Ches has done decent here in the past and like a Streelman type of thing. But I would tend to agree with you that distance and ball striking plays definitely more of a factor in this week. And that probably fits into what we like to do anyway. So maybe we have a little bit of a bias that we see that. But I'm definitely going that way with my guys.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, you mentioned Ches, you mentioned Streelman, Griot is another one. Like these are, if you're going to go with one of the shorter hitters, having an elite off the tee player. And when Ches is running good, Streelman's running good, and Griot is running good, although they don't bomb it, their accuracy more than makes up for everything. I always try to kind of emphasize this point. Like Brian Stewart and Brendan Todd essentially hit every fairway every single week, but they still don't gain strokes off the tee because they lose so much. These other guys aren't like short. They're just below average, but they hit every fairway. There's real value in that. Like I think the best player I can think of like that was Francesco Molinari, where he'd always be like top 10 in strokes gained off the tee, but he'd be below average in distance.
Yeah. You know who does that, I think, now? And actually, he was on a podcast on No Laying Up. It was talking through kind of the way he views the game. But the new version of Molinari has to be Tom Kim. Like he gains tee strokes off the tee, but said he'd rather play from the fairway and knows he can do well with his longer irons. And that's just like what those guys are. So you need a really good week like that. But our boy Tom Kim is the new Molinari in that way.
I can most definitely see that. I guess I'm trying to think of some of the other guys. I feel like Morikawa weirdly plays that way too. I feel like he could be longer off the tee. He's like, screw it, I'm great from 160.
For sure. So those guys know what they're doing, but I absolutely agree. They have to be on their peak of that off the tee, and then also run hot with deeper irons than the other guys. I mean, we'll always take somebody, further or closer to the hole and hit maybe just a clip less of fairways overall. So that's my lean.
Well, let's go over to the DraftKings pricing. It's already loaded into Fantasy National right now, and there's money to be made. Swing season. How do you usually do during the swing season? I usually have my better DraftKings weeks during. Now I know I just won the Pat Mayo Experience Open to end the season, and there is a Pat Mayo Experience Open this week, but it's for football. But this is the first show of the week where I have the link, so I'll put that down in the description right now. There's 3,000 spots, no rake, same as the golf tournament, but it's for week 2 football. If you want to get it, if you don't, no big deal. But it's there for my great golf fans and viewers and listeners. If you want to have it, we jump on over to Fantasy National and we see Hideki, Homa, Connors, Theegala are the only ones above $10,000. How do you think you're going to treat this week? Is this going to be, I can see Hideki just not being owned, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. I like getting heavy up here kind of with these guys. I think in my opinion, I am anticipating the Korn Ferry Tour guys maybe being a little bit lower owned because of the lesser knowledge. There's seems to be some good plays deeper down into the 7s and 6s. So I think we can definitely turn it on. I mean, I like Hideki a lot. I think, and maybe I kind of felt this way a little bit with football yesterday. So I don't follow football besides listening to kind of your shows, but I'm a little bit of a fish out of water when you're trying to catch up on the football, team changes and players and stuff. And probably I'd say Homa is the better player than Hideki overall. If you just rated out skill set, it's still hard for me to wrap around that Hideki's not like a top 10 player in the world. And I think I would rather take the risk, even with both of them. I would go 1-2 for both of those guys, in my opinion, by a good amount over Connors and Theegala, and try to get a combination or at least one of them is where I'd be starting my lineups.
Let's see I don't even remember if Theegala played this event. Did he?
Let's see here.
He's been 14th and 47th the past 2 years. Gained 8 strokes putting in 2020, lost 4.1 last year, but the ball striking was quite good. So he's made the cut both times. And what was the last time we saw him? I keep forgetting that he made the Tour Championship. I mean, I'm looking at his strokes gain. He's been bad off the tee. I mean, I want to say like in perpetuity, but like over the past 5, he's been especially bad off the tee. Over the past 20, he's been like, okay, the approach seems to be trending down, but he also started playing in much more difficult fields than he was previously. He was playing called the scrub events, and all of a sudden, he's got a spot into the Masters now by qualifying for the Tour Championship. So clearly he's played well enough to do those things. But when you put him up against the 29 other best players at the time on the PGA Tour, maybe he doesn't look so good. Unfortunately, or fortunately for him, looking at this field, that's not going to be much of an issue this week.
Yeah. And I think people will gravitate that. People love Sahith. And I think he's, one of the best personalities, and he seems to be easy to root for, but I still want to find a way to pay out $500, $700. I mean, I don't think we rarely get a week where the most expensive golfer is $10,700. It's definitely setting up where people are going to be paying up. I mean, into the 9Ks, I definitely do prefer some golfers below there. And I mean, maybe Connors gets overlooked of the 4, but I guess overall for me, what's his history here? Connors 13th and 19, 30th. He hasn't had much here. Yeah, I think I'd rather just get up to those top 2 and then drop down for a third or second golfer in those lineups.
Yeah, and we've seen different times in this tournament. I have the course history up on the screen right now. So Connors was T13 in 2020, hasn't played it the last 2 years. Theegala played it the last 2 years, made the cut, nothing special. Mav was second last year. It's kind of hilarious how much, because you kind of hit it on it, that to think of Homa as a much better player than Hideki, it's hard to wrap your mind around, but that just might not be true this year. Think about how we perceive certain guys. You could probably just go back and look at our draft from January to see where guys went. Now, some guys went to live, whatever. Not so much those guys, although it's not like Brooks and Bryson and Dustin were lighting it up before they left.
Yeah.
That some of these guys just aren't going to be as good as you think. Some of these guys are going to be way better than you think. So like if it comes down to a coin flip between, let's say, Hideki and Homa, and that's your choice, I think you can probably work in both of them to your lineups, and you say, hey, flip a coin. But when you look at the ownership, obviously the pricing just came out. I have no idea how ownership is going to work in swing season week 1 with football still going on. Like, is it just only going to be the sharpest people who know what's going on are playing, or are people just going to play because they have extra money because they deposited for football? I actually have no idea. I mean, you're the ownership guy. Maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah, I think we tend to see a little bit more casuals play. If, I mean, you're not going to bring somebody in brand new, but people loaded up their DraftKings accounts. People loaded up their bets, for week 1. And if they had a good week, I think we definitely end up seeing some carryover into that. Now, the education has gotten better overall, in the industry, but yeah, I think fall swing for those that really grind and want to be in it is one of the better opportunities all year long, because people will just throw a couple lineups in that since they have a balance, they're cool with it. And there's probably not as much content overall, or gets overwhelmed by football content.
It's funny. I was thinking about not doing swing season golf on the PME of this year. I was just like, you know what? I got a lot. I'm working 7 days a week doing football. And just by the end of the golf season, like, I got legitimately tired of talking about golf 4 times a week and talking about the same thing. I'm sure people got sick of listening to it at the same time too. Like, it was just such a long season. Then all the live shit is going on. It's like, there's only so much I can say about that. Like, eventually I just don't care anymore. Like, especially about the live stuff, like, just let it go. Like, let the live do what it is. No one's watching. It'll fold eventually. Like, if this is how it's going to go, this is it. Maybe it makes a comeback with all these new players. I don't know. I just bet Bryson every week, and that's literally my only interaction with live. And hopefully that ends up working out over time. But now that football has started, I was like, you know what? Kind of miss golf a little bit. I like talking golf. Like, it's weird. Like, if I just, what would you make of if I just shrunk the PME down to 3 times a week? I'm not doing that, by the way, but I'm like, if this is all, I got one shot at golf, let's go.
Yeah. I mean, man, I think one of the biggest luxuries in life, and I've taken a step back in the content world from being committed to doing obligations, not near your level, but overall, one of the biggest luxuries I think in life is to be able to do what you want on that day. Like, if golf is piquing your interest on Monday morning and you wake up, like, that's kind of what I would want to pursue for that day. If it's, football, if it's your hobby, if it's your work, if you like to read, whatever, like, that is the way I want to try to get to in life. So, like, if you're shrinking it down and not committing to commitments or timelines, like, that would be, I think, the best way you could, for your own personal, like, mental health, do things. But that's not easy in a world we live in now. But that's what I would love to strive to get to, is if I'm excited about something, that's what you do that day.
Yeah, unfortunately, the people, they know when Mondays roll around, me and Feinberg are talking golf, and if I don't put it out, they get mad, and then they'll stop listening. Then I got no job I got no fallback job besides this guy.
That's fair. I mean, you threw another one on there Sunday night last night. I saw Cust on video there. I mean, it's fun. You guys have a lot going on, man.
Yeah. I mean, week 1, you got to blow it out, right? Like, if you're going to get, like, because I partially own runthesims.com. If you like Fantasy National, like, use runthesims.com/Mayo to get yourself the discount.
It like won me opening night. What I love about the Sims, I chopped first in the second half Sims. The second half, those are really, you just adjust the point totals, it quickly spits it out. And, like, literally, I almost won last night too. I think I love Justin. I love that site. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, versus like the rest of like the optimizers and projection sites that are around in football season, Run the Sims is good because it's literally built just on pure simulations, and you can adjust those numbers any way that you want, and it'll spit you out what you want, make it super easy. And I think there are very few sites, Guy, that can do 10,000 simulations in less than 10 seconds. Yeah,
no, literally, I almost missed lock, and I was like, oh, quick, I need 90 seconds, and it spit out the lineups I needed. Good to go. So yeah, I'm a supporter.
Yeah, I mean, I've been using it for 2 years. I'm up in DraftKings football. First time that's ever happened. Not lifetime, but at least last year and through week 1, doing a lot better. And Fantasy National obviously doesn't have an optimizer, so it's a little bit different in that sense. But the way that you can research and customize is how you can do it. Let's drop down to the 9Ks. You said you like a lot of value here. What are you seeing?
I think Pendrith like screams to me here at 9,800. I mean, he was so good coming back from injury. I love that he made the President's Cup. Like, that's well-deserving and a very good course fit overall. So he's number 1 to me. I think that from a screaming standpoint, it's like I would head to head. I mean, it's $200 difference, but I mean, I think I'd pick him over Sahith. I'd pick him over Mav. And I think Cam Davis, from an overall like tee to green standpoint, would make the next sense for me in the area. If you look at Davis, history here hasn't been anything special, but he closed out the year like quite strong. Didn't end up making it to Eastlake, but his finish relative to the guys around him, to me, stood out with Pendrith. So that'd be the 1-2 in the 9Ks.
It's really weird just to go look at. I guess the 3M is a bit of a longer course, but like a lot of his good results on like Colonial top 10, Heritage top 10, Sony top 30, all the longer courses like Farmers, Phoenix, Genesis, Arnold Palmer. Like he didn't do well. Now maybe he just went through a cold streak. Who knows? But there's a weird thing with some of these guys that, I mean, Gary Woodland, we always kind of harken back to, although as Feinberg pointed out, you can kind of make the case for Gary Woodland, like what he does well at any course. It's like, well, he's a bomber, so he can play the long ones well, but you get him in a short course and he's even better because he hits every single fairway. That kind of seems to translate with Cam Davis a little bit. Yeah, no, I can get behind that. He played really good at the St. Jude, that week, I think he's just probably the best pure ball striker in this range. I mean, the last time he lost his irons would have been the Travelers, right? I think. And then even, I guess at the BMW, he was right on that line, but you can just trust his distance, trust his irons overall. And I mean, people like Cam Davis. I'm not picking these guys to be contrarian at all here, but I think those two probably are where I trust the most. I mean, Griot also, I mean, at 92 seems pretty fair. The liking to the course. Now, to your point, he needs to excel off the tee, but he had quite a strong run to end the season too. He keeps putting. 4.1 gained at the John Deere for a second place finish. Second at the 3M, 3.7 gain. St. Jude, 2.7 gain. BMW Championship, 1.8 gain. Like, did Happy learn how to putt? Like, what's going on here? It would be nice. I mean, I looked at that year that he led in to win, and then the year that he continued on, like that was probably the best year of by far of his career. And he was just so good overall and consistent, but it was still back then a putting problem. If he was able to gain any strokes, it was something that he clearly finished well. I think he had like a 12th place in the Open Championship that year. So yeah, if that flat stick, I mean, I don't trust that it's going to show up, and it has for force rate events, but I would love it if it did. Yeah, he has only gained strokes putting once in his career at this event. That even includes the year that he won. He lost strokes putting. He gained 5 in 2017, has been big in the minus every other year. Maybe there's a new Emiliano Grillo. Who knows? I, up on the screen right now, have my past 24 rounds Fantasy National model loaded in. Pendrith's number 1, Steele's number 2, Davis is number 5, Griot's number 6. And of all the top guys, Connor actually rates out the best. Scary, but I mean, it makes sense why he would, right? Yeah, well, I mean, I only have putting weighted at 5%, so that's exactly why. But he kind of fits that mold of what we talked about with the shorter hitting accuracy players. Like, dude hits a ton of fairways and he gains a ton off the tee, despite being, what is he here? 64th in this field in driving distance gained. Yeah. So, and I think it's always a good sign. I mean, it was one of the big reasons why we all bet Zalatoris at the St. Jude was like a consistent course where you could dominate without needing your short game. So Griot winning here while losing strokes, that's probably one of the first iterations that we can remember as a golf community where that happened. So, I mean, that is probably right in line with what Connors would need to do. All right, well, let's jump back into the pricing. Like, am I just a donk for going to Steele? Because like, I feel like betting Steele at 45-1. I feel like playing him. I was playing him all year anyway. It's not, I mean, maybe he started to play terrible. I know he had a few, couple bomb rounds when everyone finally jumped on him at the 3M, I think it was. But I guess he's slowed down a little bit in the 2 playoff events. But no one expects Brendan Steele to do really well in the playoffs. But at the crappier events, the guy was on fire. And again, he's another guy who can't chip to save his life, putts well sometimes, but he's won twice here. Yeah. So if you had one of those, I mean, Fantasy National, I haven't used it in a while. This tool that they have. Remember when you could change names and it would be blur out the name. It's where the hell is it? It's they make up the fake names. Moose had great names for it. But if you saw this, you would play it 100%. The fact that we know it's Brendan Steele probably gives us a little bit more caution than normal, but
8,900. I mean, he was definitively the best ball striker, I would say, in this field over the latter half of the season. And that's a lot, to get somebody like that at 8,900 plus the course history overall. Now, he did get really ownership happy during the end of that run, but maybe people do have a little bit of poor taste in their mouth near the end of the season. But 8,900, I think is a very fair price. Now, right below him,
here we go. I got Fred Durst as Hideki Matsuyama right now. So yeah, it's anti-bias mode. If you go into it, it's under menu, anti-bias mode. You can turn it on. Then you just see, Moose loves himself some music.
Yep.
Meatloaf coming in at $8,500. I'm guessing you're going to go to Trent Reznor at 8,900, who does not rate out well over the past 50, by the way.
Interesting. Okay. So maybe it's a little bit too good to be true. I don't know. I feel like he plays to the places he feels comfortable at and normally do okay. So I like him, but one golfer I would say who really changed my opinion on them last season is $100 below him. I think McCarthy's in a different echelon of overall game. It was Denny McPutts for 2 years until he finally got some irons. I listened to him on a podcast recently on the Fried Egg, and he was talking really through on how he really changed his iron game, and he's excited to get this season going because he's turned a new leaf overall from where it was. Feels like he can compete on bigger golf courses that need to, demand driving. And this is what we need out of him this week. So I'll probably take a risk, even though he needs to, at least gain strokes off the tee. That short game that he can bring, I think people might gravitate to Steele a little bit more. I would probably prefer Denny over him.
I can see the ownership concerns around that, but I got the profile page, old Denny, open right now. You know what he doesn't do? Gain strokes off the tee. Ever.
John
Deere, actually, 1.7. That's the only time he gained strokes off the tee since the Valero in the first week of April.
Okay. Well, so I would say, no, just kidding. But he competed on bigger golf courses. Now he's got to do everything else right. And maybe paying $8,800 to do that is a stretch. You could be
he was fifth at Memorial, but he gained 7 strokes around the green and 5 on the green.
If he made some putts on the back nine, he could have literally won that US Open or made it in the playoff or something, with those guys, which was incredibly demanding off the tee. So it's just, I think he's just changed from what he used to be a year ago now. And I guess he's priced appropriately in that manner too.
Yeah. I'm going to play Steele half the field is going to. I want to wait for the ownership projections to come in and try to figure out more what I want to kind of crack down on for my GPP lineups. But I don't know if I can get away from Steele in this spot. I feel like people might galaxy brain themselves out of Steele, and he just seems too cheap in this field for the way that he had been playing for the last 3 months.
Yeah. If I looked at golfers, Grillo, I think is nice, but even Hoagie, Riley, who are 400, 500 above him, I would take Steele over. I agree. I do think there are some solid places to keep going down in the 8K. So I could see myself. If you play, just say you play Matsuyama and then you played, you could play Steele, and you could still, if you played Homa, you wouldn't be able to play anymore in the 8K. So you could probably find another 2 golfers, make a Homa Hideki plus 3 8K and then get deeper into the 6s. But these lower 8K guys, I like a lot.
Okay, well, who are the ones that you like the most? I'm guessing Dietrich and Montgomery and Mullenix.
I was shocked this morning that Mullenix was 66-1. You were all over him. It was a big number, but
at St. Jude.
Yeah. But 66 in this field, I would say Mullenix is top 5 form leading in now, but it's not that much time off. He goes that win at the Barbasol. 21st at the Open is probably just as good as winning the Barbasol. Rocket Mortgage was great. St. Jude was awesome. BMW Championship, he finished 12th. He's had unbelievable stretch run. He hits it long. He gains off the tee. So that, maybe he's the most popular to everybody, but 66s, 8,300. I think he's far and away the best play in the 8Ks.
And he's another guy who, he's probably going to need to gain strokes in order to win the tournament, but if there are certain guys that don't need to gain on the greens and kind of go through, Steele would meet that criteria, Mullenix would meet that criteria, obviously Grillo would make that criteria. Kevin Tway won this event before.
True. Yeah. That's why I think when you start off the top of golfers that you really want, that we've seen more often than not end up being successful here, it is that recipe.
So Mullenix will throw into the pool. I think I have this sorted by past 50 rounds now. in terms of ball striking. Obviously, he's not going to look as good long. I mean, even for the past 50 rounds, he's still 19th in ball striking. Steele is third for what it's worth. Hoagie is still 10th, which is kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah, I mean, he flashed okay in the playoffs.
I guess he made it to the Tour Championship. Like, are we going with Taylor Montgomery? Like, is Taylor Montgomery someone we're going to look at like he might make it to Eastlake this year?
I bet Montgomery outright. I really, really like him. And it's really because if you look at his statistical profile overall, let me pull up exactly as we go through it.
I just really remember him. I used him at the US Open, I want to say. Yeah. And I remember him spiking at Torrey Pines, I think it was.
He finished
11th. Yeah, he missed the cut at the US Open. But he came in on a great run on the Corn Ferry Tour. He was T11th at the Farmers this year. And that's really his only start of the year. That in the US Open.
So 10th in adjusted scoring, and that includes golfers who have a low amount of rounds. He was realistically the number one scoring average guy on the entire season overall. 4th in weighted birdie or better. 11th in weighted bogey avoidance. 7th in weighted scrambling. 3rd in weighted putts per greens in regulation. He's a decent greens in regulation. He just hits it far, and that's why I liked him at the US Open. He's not very accurate at all, but I don't think you need accuracy as much here. He's going to gain off the tee. If you looked at the off the tee scores he had in those events too, like at Farmers, his off the tee was like literally up there with some of the, let me see if I pull it up with, he gained like.
By the way, driving accuracy at this course, 52% for the field.
So no one's going to hit it.
So no one's going to hit it. So it's like Sony in a weird way. Like, it's not too penal to play out of the rough because it's a 52% driving accuracy for the field and a higher than average green regulation percentage. It's 68%.
Yep. So like, he will be the golfer when it's long. Like, I mean, Torrey. I mean, think of Torrey is perfect there for him. So I think Montgomery is, I guess I would say, tailor-made for this course.
So Mullinix, Taylor Montgomery, do you prefer Dietrich or Sue?
Probably Sue, personally. I think it's a lot for Dietrich to come back from he played 3 events in the Corn Ferry Tour Finals. Then he goes and plays Wentworth, and then he goes from Wentworth back to California to play. Burmeister just withdrew because he didn't want to, go through the travel probably of it, and they'll tee it up next week. But I don't know. I'm probably the opposite of Jeff when it comes to Dietrich. Like, I think he's a really good golfer, and probably I need to think about that overall more when he's priced here. He does not need to win by any means. He did really, really good in the PGA Tour events that he played, 22nd both times in those swing season events. Bermuda, I guess it was the Technology Championship at the time, but the other one down there, 15th in Corrales, 10th at the Scottish, 34th at the Open Championship, 5th last week, 4th at the start of the Corn Ferry Tour Finals. So he's probably a really, really good DraftKings play. I'm not one to bet Dietrich, so I would play him, but I think Sue's upside overall and a little bit of savings, right? He's maybe 100 or what's he, 300 cheaper, 400 cheaper?
300 cheaper, yeah.
Okay, so I think Sue for me, I would pick Mullinix first, Montgomery, Sue, then Dietrich. But I would be exposed to all of them if I'm playing like 20 lineups. Yeah,
I'll probably end up playing more than that. Probably end up going with like a 75. That's where I've kind of found my sweet spot. But I'm not playing the $20. I'm playing the $5. I don't want to be wasting my money out there. I can't. I was talking to Tambo about it. I was like, I just can't handle the swings. It's like I could afford to do it for a few weeks and lose, and then I'd have to readjust if I didn't win anything. And it would suck to look at it. Just, I don't want to lose that much. I really don't. Like, the pleasure I would get from winning 50K versus 200K is like the same for me. I think that's an important point about like tempering your expectations about what you actually want. Listen, I want to win the $1 million. You know what I didn't play this week? The Millionaire Maker on DraftKings.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think that's probably came to all of us the more we've played, and just gotten used to either not winning or realizing how hard it is. I mean, even the way, like even DraftKings, like yesterday, I had a sweat for Wentworth. And I mean, the difference between first and second was like $7,500. It was 10K to first and 2,500 to second. And like the run good you need to win something is already insane. So yes, control your bankroll. I totally agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have the show that's out right now. It's on a Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, the Mix audio feed. That is the Corn Ferry preview, but you'll be back again tonight with Tom for the Italian Open preview too, right? Is there
the Guido Migliozzi Open? The Guido Open, baby. He finished like 13th yesterday at Wentworth. Yeah, but they got a good field. Rory's leading that field. Yep.
Is Rory just like, hey, I'm going to play in every event for a year, like that? I'm falling on the sword for everybody.
Yes, he is Superman right now, and I mean, probably could have won yesterday if he would have birdied 17 on a par 5. But yeah, he's teeing it up there. I think, well, because it's the course where the Ryder Cup is going to be at, so it's probably really realistically why Rory's there. But you also have Hovland there, Fitz is playing, Hatton's playing. So you do have some of these guys that are probably for sure on the Ryder Cup team wanting to get another kind of show at the course. But there are some phenomenal Italian names in this field, let me tell you.
Well, tell me about them.
Okay, so this one is probably my favorite. Giovanni Manzoni.
Giovanni Manzoni.
We got Filippo Celli back this week.
Who was the dude? Who was the young guy from the British Open this year?
Yeah, that's Filippo Celli.
Okay, Filippo Celli. But hey, remember when you look at it, Fabrizio Zanardi is from like Paraguay. He's not Italian.
Stefano Mazzoli, he's teeing it up. Man, they give all their invitations. Gregory DeLeo. I mean, these names are so good. Also, I mean, we'll talk about it later, but yeah, Guido's in the mix. I thought Wacky Valimaki he was like top 4 when I woke up, and then he just went down since then.
How hard is this course?
I don't think it's that difficult. Last year, Nikolai Højgaard won at 13 under, so it's a little bit more difficult. Meronk finished second. I think it's one that you can really attack off the tee too. So that leads to kind of our favorite guys over there. So
yeah, I see. Southgate is 70. Like if Southgate could make, I've been on Southgate the past few weeks on DP. If dude could make a putt, he would win like 5 tournaments a year.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think he's very well in the mix. There's that 70. I think there was like even hundreds out there on him. I know Baroff bet Southgate really early this morning, so he's on him. But I actually do. I think it's like an off the tee putting week, which would fall in line if Guido can find a fairway.
Or Rory.
Yeah, he might win by 11.
Or Vic. If Vic brings the putter, and it seemed like he was putting pretty well at Wentworth. Vic or Rory. Yeah.
Yeah, but you get some, I mean, they pulled a good field here. And then next week should be, I'm trying to think of the exact order. I believe it would be the Open Day France, and then they go to the Alfred Dunhill. So it's a good stretch run.
So this is way better than what the PGA Tour is offering at the moment. Why don't they just co-sanction these events?
I know. There's so much I wish we could do to get, I worry about the DP World Tour, like future in reality. I mean, Rory's going to try to save it, but man, it's like last week was pretty spicy getting the live guys there. I know it was controversial, but I mean, they were all over the leaderboard, and it kind of brought a different element to Wentworth. When the big guys aren't playing and no live guys are, these fields are tough.
Yeah. But like, the DP World Tour should just allow the live guys to play. Like it's their biggest X factor right now. If you can have like Reed and Brooks and Bryson in your tournament with Sergio, who's like pulling out and then going to college football games, like at least create something. And it would give like a nice medium point for the PGA Tour to, hey, if Rory wants to go play against the live guys, okay, no problem. Just can't do it on our tour.
I'd imagine it's the PGA Tour's, what do they call it? Strategic alliance that maybe ends up putting a little bit more of a foot down because they probably pay the DP World Tour to stay alive. But yeah, I mean, those weeks are definitely the biggest ones, I think, from an eyeball standpoint, because people are going to talk about it. So, but it's the best events are definitely this little swing. We'll probably get these big guys to close out the Race to Dubai stuff. So it's fun times over there.
All right. So I'm going to use Dietrich. I'm probably not going to use Sue. I really should.
That's your boy, though.
He is my boy. Yeah, I got to go with. I'm going to lose so much money on him this year. It's going to be ridiculous. But before we get into the 7Ks, just looking at some of the names that are here, like if I just wanted to say, screw it, I want to start my lineups with, starting with Steele is probably a bit much, but like Steele, Dietrich, Montgomery, Mullenix, Sue, like that could be a lineup with one other person. That's not all that expensive.
Yeah, I would go 2 routes. I would go very heavy stars and scrubs, or I love getting into lineups that start under 9Ks because you get the guys you want, but you still stay unique because rarely are people going to go all that way down to build. And you still have 7,500 left if you play those guys, so you could make a few builds that way. Or if you wanted to mix in, McCarthy in my player pool and do some lineups with all 5 or 4 or 5 of those guys, I think that's a strong way to start.
All right, 7Ks. Who are we looking at here? Nick Hardy, $7,500.
Yeah, I like Hardy a lot. I think he's a strong player overall. I mean, he comebacks like his year probably was derailed because he had that wrist injury, and he comes back and he ends up, top 2 or finishing T2 in the Korn Ferry Tour event. Literally was front page of the leaderboard at the US Open not that far afterwards, was really, really good in the Korn Ferry Tour finals. So yeah, I would say he screams to me at 7,500. Favorite play. No, Burmeister did withdraw last night, so he is priced 7,700, but he won't be playing. So if you think that Montgomery and Sue are very much in play, Carl Juan is cheaper than those guys and had a statistically very, very similar year. So if you looked at Juan, the way he does things overall, I mean, he was just behind those guys in scoring average. He makes a lot of birdies. I would say of those guys who played a full season on the Korn Ferry Tour, he would have been 3rd in weighted birdie average. He's long, he hits green. So like Juan probably would be the one. Like, I think he's a definite better player than Cam Champ on a consistency standpoint. But people might gravitate to Champ because he's Champ won here, right?
Yeah, Champ won here. Champ won here. Champ won at Sanders and Farms, and he won at the 3M.
Yes. Okay. So and that was Champ's second start after he made from Korn Ferry Tour finals. So yeah, I think Champ.
No. Champ won. No, did he? I thought Champ won Sanders and Farms. And
no,
then
you're right.
He won.
That's the second event like of the swing season. I think Sanderson's next week. So
he won this one like 2 years ago.
Yes, correct. But I guess we talked Rio earlier. Champ was another one that made an immediate impact. I think Juan, I kind of thought Andrew Putnam had a sneaky end to his season that people didn't really give him all that much credit for. 5th at the St. Jude, 23rd at the BMW, 11th at the 3M, 27th at the Wyndham. Like 70, kind of falls in that weird zone. He also is more of a, not probably the profile I would put here.
He's like the homeless man's Denny McCarthy.
Correct. But I think he might go under-owned because he's a little bit in a price range you don't find him normally. So I think Putnam could be fine there. I'm always a big Alex Smalley fan.
I gotta say, while you were talking, I was just going through and finding people on the list, and Smalley just jumped out to me for what he does well. I wanted to check to see because his driving at the BMW Championship was horrendous. Couldn't hit a fairway, and he actually lost distance, but he was against all the best players in the world. He gets to come back here right now. Smalley, $7,300, 10th in approach, 41st off the tee, 30th in driving distance. Very good with his long irons, very good with his like 100 to 125. Like he's exactly where you want him to be. Can he make any putts? Doubtful, but he could be okay here.
Yeah, I mean, he was a top 10 at the Scottish Open. It's probably the best event Smalley. I guess he was in the mix at the Mexico Open too, but that top 10 against the best in the world kind of shows his ceiling, in my opinion. So I think he does stand out like a sore thumb there at that price range. Because what's interesting to me is you don't see any Korn Ferry Tour guys. You have Juan at $7,800, and then realistically, you have to go all the way down to $7,100 to get into the next guys. Now, I think two golfers really low at the 7Ks stand out to me. I don't know how we don't play Goddard up at 7,100 unless we just think he's bad. Do you think he's bad now?
I don't know. I keep betting him every week and he sucks.
Yeah. I still think his ceiling is as good. I mean, like he was in the mix at an event right out. Like it was a bummer. That Korn Ferry Tour finals for him, huge bummer because we saw that ceiling, especially from a ball strike. He's going to be the longest guy in the field here. He's done lights out with his irons. I don't see how we don't bet him again, even though like it's probably what we shouldn't do. But at $7,100, I think that's a steal.
Yeah, but while you were talking, I was going through Wyndham Clark because the profile that you set up kind of screams Wyndham Clark, like bomb it, make putts. And Jason Day is apparently in this field too. Not that anyone noticed.
Gosh, man, what a falling out. I think that's a good find on Clark though, because he did well at the Scottish, right?
He ended the year really well. He's only 2 for 2 in cuts made here. No finish better than 30th, but like the profile that you've set up in my mind feels like when I'm going to use Wyndham Clark. I'll throw him in at $8,000. I don't like him as much as the other guys that we mentioned, be it let's see here. I mean, Webb's at 84 in this field. Maybe he's just good again. Who knows? But it's going to be tough to see. Yeah,
Yeah.
just
And
of that
Woodland's here
range.
for the first time too at 8K flat. But yeah, I think I would prefer Clark. That's a good find.
So who else? Like Callum Tarrant, he crushes it off the tee.
Does.
Is Harry Hall in this field?
We'll get 6K is your boy Harry Hall is in the field. Yes.
Who else do we have down here? Wallace is playing better golf all of a sudden.
Yeah, but it was all short game driven over there. He almost stole a win from your boy Thurston Lawrence.
Yeah, Thirsty Lawrence. I mean, I had a good run on Euro for like a 3-week stretch.
I think one of the big misprices here too.
List?
Well, yeah, I was going to bring him up. I think second to list would be JJ Spawn. Spawn feels odd to me at $7,500. And 8th, the Rocket Mortgage, 23rd, the BMW Championship, all driven there. I mean, he might be one of those guys that is able to gain off of the tee consistently and not be, distance driven.
They most definitely. I feel like he's a California guy too. Just plays well in California.
Yep. So I think that's one. I like Spawn.
All right. So Spawn's going in. What do we do with List? Like we have to play him at $7,000.
100%. Yeah. I mean, he is the 12th ranked. Again, OWGR's, not the most, accurate thing, but he's literally the 12th ranked golfer in the field when it comes to OWGR. And here he is at 7K flat. You just sign up for what but finished 4th here in 18. I mean, he's got a decent, history here. He's only missed one cut.
He has been so bad since he won at the Farmers.
Yeah, but it's all worth it when you hit the one, like you're forever in the green.
I mean, forever in the green might be pushing it a little bit. I'm in the green on Luke List now. Yes, I can get back in the red pretty quickly.
But okay, so if we're playing him because of his ceiling, right? Probably not because of his accuracy. So or like consistency. That probably should mean we're betting him with triple digits then too.
Oh, 100, yeah, like 100%. I don't see how in this field where he went to Torrey Pines and won. And we all know with the stat profile, I mean, the same case I just made for Connors at the very beginning of the show is the same case for List.
Yeah. So then I would also, I'll probably end up on Goddard up there too, because I think he's one of those guys.
The only issue with List is, and one of the reasons I actually really did like him at Torrey Pines is that's a very low greens and regulation course where short game really plays a big factor. And that always gets overlooked with Luke List is how good he can be around the greens where Connors isn't. Yep.
That's completely fair. Mm-hmm.
And you might not need that here. Like that might not be a prevailing factor here. Like you got to be hitting greens and regulation or you're cooked.
Yep. Yeah. But still 7K.
It says 7K, even lower than Goddard. What is he in the betting? Let's see here. I was back on the Italian Open. Yeah, Mullinex 60, Montgomery 50. Where's our guy? Is Wyndham Clark like way down there too? Smalley is 60. Oh man, I can lose so much money this week. 65 for Wyndham Clark, 75 for JJ Spawn. Just bet a bunch of long shots. Oh, Nick Hardy. These aren't all the guys I'm betting for anyone watching. I'm highlighting these for later just to figure out what I want to do. Good Lord, List is 130 to 1 at DraftKings.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think overall it's you have to bet that.
He's priced the same as Lee Hodges, who I enjoy to bet, don't get me wrong, but might be a combined 370 million over par in third rounds this year.
Yeah. He definitely, when Jeff was on him that one time, right? When he
I was on him. I was on him that week. Too? Just like, good Lord, what is going on with this?
It's a perfect week for long shots, though. I agree.
Yeah, and then Max Homa is going to win 10 to 1.
We get a little dog bark there for Luke List too. So
that's good. That's always good information to have. So we'll go into the sixes. Sell me on some 6K guys that I can round out with those, because I don't want to use these guys as a part of my, let's say, those balance builds that I was talking about. But for the starters, if I want to go Hideki Homa and Taylor Montgomery, who are three guys I can go down here with, is it MJ Duffy?
He's probably the more consistent of the people down here. Now, I think a golfer who had a really, really good Corn Ferry Tour Finals. I struggle to think this golfer, he's older than I imagined him being, but he still doesn't scream like high upside. And it's $6,800 for Joseph Bramlett. He goes 18th, 6th, and 23rd in the Corn Ferry Tour Finals, the best greens in regulation of pretty much anybody who played that stretch, which is his struggle normally. He rarely gains with his irons, but he is literally like the longest or one of the top 3 longest guys in the field. Fits well, in my opinion, at this type of course. I believe he played it last year. Made the cut. Hasn't really had that strong of finishes, but that stretch of 3 events in a row for him stood out to me at $6,800 overall. I mentioned off the top, one golfer that I think is severely underrated or will not be as known from the Korn Ferry Tour graduates is Sam Stevens, $6,700. Sam Stevens, in his last 4 events, he had 2 rounds of 62 in it, so can really, really go low, in my opinion. You'll probably lean Harry Hall at $6,700, who does hit it very far, but I think Stevens is just somebody who came a little bit later into kind of his talent. He played a mini tours a lot. Ryan goes and tells how he made over like $100,000 in 1 year on mini tours alone. So I think him at $6,700, and I'll stay. I just love taking chances with kind of these Korn Ferry Tour guys. And at $6,300 might be one of my favorites too. Now, Team No Putt is all in force for Brent Grant. Brent Grant is somebody who, if you look at the events that he has played on the PGA Tour, like it's as bad as it gets from a putter standpoint. But he
my God.
Yeah, he can spike though. I mean, he won an event in May in the Korn Ferry Tour. He finished 11th at the Korn Ferry Tour Championship this past week. But for somebody who hits it as far as he does and then ends up hitting greens in regulation at the rate he does and is priced in this range, I think he could miss the cut by 7, but he could also, I think, find himself in the mix. He's a West Coast guy, went to college in Hawaii, but has played kind of that outlaw tour and kind of the West Coast swing. So I like him opening up the season there. So $6,300, he stands out to me.
Okay. So I like some of these names. I was going to throw, it's funny. You like all the new, you're a sucker for all these new names that are coming in. And you know that I love like my old losers, like Nick Taylor. I mean, the Smother Man, he's back in the field. He's $6,500. What about Benny Ann?
So this was interesting. So I dug into Ben Ann a little bit from his stats. I think he might have changed his game up a little bit when he went down the Korn Ferry Tour. Every single event this entire season. Now, driving distance is judged off of just 2 holes on the Korn Ferry Tour. Again, we don't have strokes gained by anything close to it, but he was top 20 in distance in every single event this season, which I don't remember that being the old Ben Ann. He was a good driver, but he hit fairways all the time and he hit greens and he could chip, with the best of them. So you would think the original Ben Ann would have been really, really good for this event. And I guess the overhaul of his game or the change of his off the tee probably isn't the worst thing for here. So, he had a consistent, really good start to the year.
Well, down at the very bottom of the pricing, like Brandon Matthews is there. He's probably the longest guy in the field.
Yes. Yeah.
Do we want to use him though? Like, isn't he just basically a long drive specialist?
Correct. I would rather find the $100 and play or get to Brent Grant. One guy, it's so sad to see him down here, but man, can you believe like Garrick Higo has just done nothing?
I know. That was our guy, man. He won us our money. I think we're good with him.
It was literally his first PGA Tour start. And maybe he's the griot. Maybe it's just like, that's what it is. That's what we got. And we won that event.
Where is he? I just clicked. John Augustine is like the dead min at 6,000. He was 6th here last year. He had
that is the weird thing. And I'm happy for the overhaul. That 6th place got him into Korn Ferry Tour finals. That's how little you need to get to be eligible for them. But he hasn't done realistically much. He got a sponsor's exemption to get back here to play. He was talented in college. Bridgman was really good at $6,100 at Clemson, just graduated, hasn't really caught on to anything. I'm trying to, if I would think of golfers that are not in, we talked about Norman. Norman's at $6,400. If you want to attack that profile, it's just littered with these golfers that are newer or graduating this year. I'm trying to branch out. Is there anybody else that is a PGA Tour regular that you're interested here? Damon's $6,700.
No, maybe Damon at 67 could be okay. This doesn't really feel like the course for him. I guess the whole point is like, this is a full field event. It's a cut event and there's no good players in it. Like, this seems to be the weakest this field's been in some time. Like, didn't Rahm play the past 2 years? Like, Phil would always be here. I feel like Bryson played this a lot. I might be wrong about Bryson, but he usually played in a lot of these California events that we're now in a spot where it seems like we're just being like, oh, Sky just did the Corn Ferry show. He's really high on these Corn Ferry guys, but they might legitimately be the best players in the $6,000 range this week.
Yeah, no, I firmly believe that. Look like Cantlay used to play here a lot. Phil loved this event. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know if it's because maybe the overhaul of the points doesn't put as much of a focus on the fall swing. Like if you didn't play the fall swing before, you fell behind. Those guys are good enough that it really doesn't matter. But especially these Corn Ferry Tour guys, everyone has motivation, but the reshuffling of order off of the fall swing is incredibly important because guys might be second when they come into the season. Outside of Justin Sue, there really isn't anybody who's guaranteed all the starts. Like these guys do have to perform to play well and stay off alternate lists. So there is impact. There was one more that I didn't say anything about all show. Se-Young Kim is $6,900. He would probably be a fringe top 5 graduate for me. He was very consistent overall in the season. One of the golfers who, if you don't win on the Corn Ferry Tour and you easily eclipse the points you need, it shows that you just had a really strong overall season. He played the CJ Cup last year too to kick off the year, finished 32nd. Normally guys that get those exemptions end up just filling up the bottom of the leaderboard. He was really good in the Japanese Tour the year before. So I think 6,900, I would get to him a little bit too.
Yeah, all the Corn Ferry stats, guy, are actually now loaded into Fantasy National.
Perfect.
So that's happened over the past 30 minutes that we've been talking. So the entire season is in there now. So yeah, you can see his sixth, the second, the third. Like he had a really good year.
Yeah. So yeah, he finished 12th on the points list and didn't win. So like, again, you don't have to even come close to winning at that price to pay off. So I think he is somebody I'm definitely would be getting to on DraftKings.
So I punched in to this lineup generator, 75 lineups. Oh, good. I got 56% Hideki, 50% Homa, 44% Pendrith. Don't know how I'm feeling about 24% Vince Norman at this point, but might have to roll that out there.
Hey, I said this on the show with Ryan, and it's probably a big stretch, but what it reminds me of a little bit is like a year before the emergence of Zalatoris. Like this is what Zalatoris's game was before he was, like Zalatoris's last year on the Corn Ferry Tour, he was basically, from a weighting rank as good as the top 30 player on the PGA Tour. Like he was great, but he had a year which was very Norman-esque, didn't win, hit every green, hit every fairway, drew over with the best of them. And we saw Norman top 10 events on the European Tour right out of the gates. You said it. He had an ace and a par 4. I mean, it's as good as it gets.
All right, so let's do some quick picks for the bets of the week. List is at 130 to 1 is like an auto play for me. That seems absolutely insane for the pedigree. Like you say, he's the 12th ranked player in this field. He's 130 to 1. Granted, he hasn't been good recently, but the skill set fits. But I'm thinking Steele, Taylor Montgomery, Luke List, and Alex Smalley as my 4 for the week. I mean, I could turn that to 6. I could turn it to 5, whatever it might be. I think Steele's 40 to 1, 45 to 1. So if that's where I'm starting, I don't want to go too crazy on swing season. And I will say the Fantasy National Simulator, I think that goes up on Tuesday evening, it wasn't as good last year because we saw stronger fields last year in the swing season. But the years before that, when it was these weaker fields, it absolutely dominated. Like it hit Munoz and Austin Cook and all these weird guys at like 80 to 1.
Yeah. So I'm pretty close with you. So I would be going, starting the card Montgomery. I'm on Mullinax. Both of those guys, 60s, 66s. Yeah. I think if I'm betting one on the week, it's Mullinax for me. And then, Luke List with you, 130s. I'm still going to go over to Goddard. You can find him 130 as well on DraftKings. And then 2 longer. I still think the upside, like Bramlett to me is somebody who possesses an elite skill. He's 180 to 1 on DraftKings as well. And then 2 other golfers, maybe it's a top 20. I don't know if I can get to outright, but I like Sam Stevens a lot. And then Grant's 300. Yeah, he's 300 to 1 on DraftKings. I don't know if they do have the top 20s out. Let's find. He's 7 to 1 for a top 20. So I could see myself getting there on Grant for a top 20 and maybe even an outright on Stevens at 180.
So the other ones for me are going to be, I don't know if I'm going to get there. I'll end up going with Molinick, so I'll add him to the 5. Hardy at 100 to 1 and Spawn at 75 to 1. I actually think are pretty good numbers. Yeah. I know Spawn can win on the PGA Tour. That's That's good to know.
Twice. Yeah. I like that spawn number. That probably makes sense. But I'm probably starting my card at 66s. So I feel like I might end up betting like 13 guys.
Oh, that's fun. I'm going to try to keep out. Maybe we'll make it Mayo's 6-pack of the week, and I can go with, although that's now, yeah, that's 6 guys. Hardy would make it 7. But Mayo's 7-pack of the week, but but I start with Steele at 45, work my way down. Unfortunately, people don't seem to understand. I tried to explain this to someone one time. They were like, well, you just pick everyone in the field. It's like, well, I didn't pick anyone who's favored to win. Like my one Brennan Steele is 5 max homers in terms of payout.
Yeah. Yeah. 100% or 5, depending on how you bet, like the same dollar's worth, you get 3 guys for 1 homer. Like, yeah, I totally agree with that approach.
All right. So you got Italian Open coming tonight. You have the entire Corn Ferry preview. That is already out on Mayo Media Network and Daily Fantasy Sports, Picks and Bets, the mix. This is a big week for you. Back-to-back shows. Yeah, no, it was fun. I mean, it's when you get niche opportunities like this, I think those are my favorite. And when you have a financial opportunity potentially with them all too, it's even better. So I think that's hopefully going to fall in line. And they're golfers that, I've had a terrible showing in our draft the last 2 years. So I need to figure out something different. And maybe it starts with getting some guys in there. Maybe I think you picked Justin Sue about 2 years ago in that draft as well. So maybe you can get him again this year. I think he earned $43,000. Yeah, it's probably more than my Tiger Woods did that year though. So I came second this year. And I think I finished $13 million behind Feinberg. Yeah. He just ran away with that thing. Scheffler was all it took. But, Scheffler and Zalatoris though. Yeah, true. Yeah. He had a heck of a draft. When's he going to be back, by the way? He can't be playing anything in the fall. I would think. Is he doing anything? So he's out of the President's Cup? He's out of the President's Cup for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I just pray he's good by January. Hopefully we get him back at Torrey all good and kind of run that swing. Because back injuries are scary. How bad is this international team going to be? I don't think I'm able to wrap my head around that, because my fear is I talk to myself, and maybe because I do the show, I talk myself into how, we're showing up at Whistling Straits and the DP World Tour, the European team can handle themselves. Maybe, Westy's going to go out and steal a couple points. Fitz is going to be the MVP. The odds are definitely correct. Jeff's out here getting, 30% interest in month over month, on mortgages that he's laid down. It's probably going to be a blowout, sadly. I'm excited for Tom Kim. Maybe we can just root for Tom Kim for a couple points. Tom Kim, Pendrith, Corey Cullen. Yes. It's funny because the President's Cup team is comprised of all guys that we really like, but who are like, if they were all in a tournament together, they would be 150 to 1. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And we'd probably bet half of them. Yeah. So I like the team, but I think I'm growing in my knowledge of not thinking they stand a chance, unfortunately. I think it works out well for them long term, because I would guess the live guys will eventually be back in the mix for this. So that would be one tip, because the international team and the European team, realistically, feels like the international team was the most affected by live in terms of overall quality. The US lost Dustin and Bryson and Brooks. Look at their team. It doesn't matter. Correct. Losing Cam, on that team is as big of a hurt as you can really get, probably. It's equivalent of losing Rory, on the European team for them. So yeah, I'm excited though. It's always fun to watch. It's coming to Canada in 4 years, 2024, right? Or 2 years. Yeah. So yeah, that'll be exciting. No, I think it's a fun event. Hopefully there's at least some fireworks overall. Is it 2024? If it's in the US this year. Yeah, but do I have that wrong? You're getting the international side. Yeah, well, it's a US side this. Oh yeah, because it's every 2 years. Yes. That's right. That makes far more sense now. It was like, wouldn't it be international next year? It's like, there is none next year, you moron. It makes a ton of sense. Montreal, I want to throw a real event. I was going to say the DFS and Open. Friends event at the President's Cup in Montreal. I would love it. I've heard a blast about Montreal. So I don't know what time of the year. Can you golf this time of the year in Canada? Can you do the DFS Open? You could. Oh yeah, most definitely. Okay. Send Bear off up there. See if you can get a scouting trip, him and Joe, and they can scout it out again, and we can run that back. I just worry that if we do this event in Montreal, that Kenny's not making it back home. He'll be buried in Montreal. Canadian restaurant. Yeah. Kenny would live there. He would. All right, so check out Sky all over the network this week. Obviously, yesterday, this show, and tomorrow's show for the Italian Open. Follow him at Skyhook DFS on Twitter to get all your ownership percentages and duplicated lineups as soon as lock happens for both Euro and the PGA Tour. Thank you all for watching. I'm Pat Mayo. Smash the like. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!